The alarm bells rang through the Earth Defense Command Center at exactly 3:47 a.m. Commander Park Ji-won was the first to reach the communication room, her boots echoing in the empty hallways. The night shift officer, Lieutenant Kim Tae-ho, looked up from his screens with worry in his eyes. "What do we have?" Park Ji-won asked, pulling her jacket tight against the cold air conditioning. "It's from Kepler 442b, ma'am, the mining colony." Kim Tae-ho's fingers moved quickly across the control panel. "We just received an automated distress signal." Park Ji-won felt her stomach drop. Kepler 442b was one of humanity's most important colonies. Nearly 3,000 people lived there, mining rare crystals and studying alien plant life. Dr. Hana Kim, the head scientist, sent reports every week about their discoveries. "When was their last communication?" Park Ji-won asked. 3 months ago, ma'am. Dr. Hana Kim's weekly report just stopped coming." The silence stretched between them. 3 months was a long time in space. "Too long. Play the message," Park Ji-won ordered. The speakers crackled to life. A robotic voice filled the room. "Emergency broadcast from Kepler 442b colony. Immediate evacuation required. Hostile force encountered. Survival uncertain. This message will repeat every 24 hours until response is confirmed." Park Ji-won stared at the speaker. The message was short and cold, but it meant something terrible had happened. The automatic system only activated when the colony's command center detected extreme danger, and no human was available to send a proper message. "Have you contacted Earth Command?" she asked. "Yes, ma'am. They're reviewing the situation." Park Ji-won knew what that meant. Earth Command would take days to make a decision. They would argue about costs and risks. Meanwhile, if anyone was still alive on Kepler 442b, they would be waiting for help that might never come. She walked to the main display screen and pulled up the colony files. Dr. Hana Kim's face appeared on the screen, smiling in her official photo. She was young for a head scientist, only 32 years old. Her team had made amazing discoveries about the crystal formations on the planet. The crystals seemed to store and release energy in ways that human science didn't understand yet. "Lieutenant, get me everything we know about the colony's last 3 months," Park Ji-won said. Kim Tae-ho worked quickly, pulling up files and reports. "Here's what we have, ma'am. 3 months ago, Dr. Hana Kim reported unusual energy readings from the crystal caves. She said the crystals were becoming more active, almost like they were responding to something." Responding to what? She didn't know. The report mentioned strange lights and sounds coming from deep underground. The mining teams reported equipment malfunctions near the larger crystal formations. Park Ji-won studied the data. The colony had been doing well before the problems started. Food production was steady, mining operations were ahead of schedule, and the research team was excited about their work. "What about the planetary scans?" she asked. "That's the strange part, ma'am. Our long-range sensors show the planet is still there and we can detect life signs. But something's different. The energy readings are off the charts now." Park Ji-won felt a chill run down her spine. Energy readings that were off the charts usually meant trouble. Big trouble. The door opened and Captain Lee Do-hyun walked in. He was a tall man with serious eyes and graying hair. Everyone in the Defense Force knew his reputation. He had served on the frontier for 20 years and had never lost a ship or abandoned his people. "What's the situation?" he asked. Park Ji-won quickly explained about the distress signal and the missing reports. Captain Lee listened without speaking, his face growing more serious with each detail. "How long to reach Kepler 442b?" he asked. 6 weeks through normal hyperspace routes, sir," Kim Tae-ho answered. "Too long," Captain Lee said quietly. "If people are still alive, they won't last 6 more weeks." "Sir, Earth Command hasn't authorized a rescue mission yet," Park Ji-won said carefully. Captain Lee's eyes hardened. "Earth Command is worried about politics. I'm worried about our people." He walked to the communication panel and opened a secure channel. "This is Captain Lee Do-hyun. I need to speak with Dr. Yoon Seo-jin immediately." Park Ji-won knew Dr. Yoon Seo-jin by reputation. She was brilliant but controversial. Her theories about faster-than-light travel were considered dangerous by most scientists. She claimed it was possible to fold space itself, making long journeys happen in hours instead of weeks. "Sir," Park Ji-won said quietly, "Dr. Yoon's technology hasn't been tested yet. It could be suicide." "Waiting 6 weeks is definitely suicide for the colonists," Captain Lee replied. "At least Dr. Yoon's way gives us a chance." Dr. Yoon Seojin arrived within an hour. She was a small woman with intense eyes and hands that moved constantly as she talked. She carried a tablet filled with equations and diagrams. "Captain Lee, I assume this is about my fold space drive," she said without greeting. "Can it work?" he asked directly. "In theory, yes. We could reach Kepler 442b in less than a day, but the risks are enormous. We could tear our ships apart or worse, get lost between dimensions. What do you need?" Dr. Yoon smiled for the first time since entering the room. "I need the EDF engine and her quantum cores. And I need a crew crazy enough to try something that has never been done before." Captain Lee turned to Park Ji-won. "Commander, prepare the engine for immediate departure. Call in every off-duty officer. We leave in 12 hours. Sir, what about Earth Command? They'll court-martial you for this." Captain Lee looked at Dr. Hana Kim's photo on the screen. "Let them try. I didn't join the Defense Force to abandon people who need help." As the room filled with activity, Park Ji-won felt both fear and excitement. They were about to attempt something impossible to save people. They might already be too late to help. But that was what humans did. They tried anyway. On the screen, the automated message from Kepler 442b continued to repeat its call for help. Soon they would answer it in a way that would shock everyone, including themselves. 12 hours later, the EDF Incheon hung in space like a sleeping giant. She was humanity's newest and most powerful warship, built with technology that pushed the limits of human engineering. Her hull gleamed silver against the stars, and her quantum cores hummed with barely contained energy. Captain Lee Do-yoon stood on the bridge, watching his crew make final preparations. Commander Park Ji-won moved between stations, checking systems and giving orders. Dr. Yoon Seojin sat at a specially installed console, her fingers dancing over controls that most people couldn't understand. "Captain," Park Ji-won reported, "all ships are ready. We have 12 vessels total, including the Incheon." Lee nodded. 12 ships wasn't much for a rescue mission into unknown danger, but it was all they could gather on short notice. Each ship carried emergency supplies, medical equipment, and enough firepower to handle most threats they might face. "Dr. Yoon, status report on the fold space drive," Lee called out. "All quantum cores are synchronized," she replied, not looking up from her work. "The equations are as perfect as I can make them. But Captain, I have to warn you again. This technology has only been tested in computer simulations. We're about to attempt something that could kill us all." "Understood," Lee said calmly. "Open a channel to all ships." The communication officer, Lieutenant Han Soo-young, nodded. "Channel open, sir." Lee picked up the microphone. "This is Captain Lee Do-yoon to all vessels. In 5 minutes, we will attempt humanity's first fold space jump. Our destination is Kepler 442b, where nearly 3,000 of our people are waiting for help. What we're about to do has never been tried before. It's dangerous and some of us might not survive. But those colonists are counting on us." He paused, looking around the bridge at his crew. Every face showed determination mixed with fear. "If anyone wants to withdraw, do it now. No one will think less of you." The communication channels remained silent. Not a single ship requested permission to leave. "Very well," Lee continued. "Dr. Yoon will begin the fold space sequence in 3 minutes. Trust your ships, trust your crews, and trust each other. We'll see each other on the other side." As the countdown began, Dr. Yoon's hands moved faster over her controls. The Incheon's quantum cores began to sing with increasing intensity. Other ships in the fleet reported similar energy buildups. 60 seconds to fold initiation, Dr. Yoon announced. On the bridge screens, space itself began to look strange. The stars seemed to bend and stretch as if someone was pulling them like taffy. The fabric of reality was beginning to respond to the enormous energies the ships were generating. 30 seconds, Dr. Yoon called out. "All ships prepare for dimensional transition." Captain Lee gripped his command chair. Around him, his crew held onto their stations. The ship began to vibrate softly at first, then more violently. 15 seconds. Energy levels at maximum. Spacefold initiating in 10, 9, 8. The vibration became a roar. The bridge lights flickered. Someone shouted a warning about power fluctuations. 3, 2, 1. Fold! The universe exploded into impossible colors. Reality twisted and bent around them. For a moment that felt like eternity. The ships existed in a space between spaces where the normal rules of physics meant nothing. The crew felt their bodies stretch and compress, their minds touched by something vast and alien. Then, as suddenly as it began, everything stopped. The bridge was silent except for the quiet hum of the ship's systems. Captain Lee looked around, amazed that he was still alive. His crew slowly lifted their heads from their stations, checking instruments in each other. "Report," Lee ordered, his voice slightly shaky. "All systems operational," Park Ji-won called out, wonder in her voice. "We're intact. Dr. Yoon?" The scientist was staring at her instruments with wide eyes. "Captain, we did it. We actually did it. The fold space jump worked perfectly. Where are we?" "According to our navigation systems, we're in the Kepler 442 system. The planet is..." She checked her readings again. "Right there." On the main screen, a blue-green world appeared. Kepler 442b looked peaceful from space, with white clouds swirling over continents and oceans. But something was wrong with the picture. "Captain," Lieutenant Han Soo-young said from the communication station, "I'm reading some very strange energy signatures from the planet." "What kind of signatures?" "I've never seen anything like them. The energy patterns are alive somehow. They're moving and changing." Commander Park Ji-won studied her tactical displays. "Sir, I'm detecting the colony structures, but there's something else. Large formations that weren't in the original surveys." Captain Lee felt the familiar cold touch of danger. "Dr. Yoon, how long did our journey take?" 17 hours and 12 minutes, she replied, still amazed by her own success. "Impossible," Lee breathed. "It should have taken 6 weeks." The implications hit everyone at once. They had just traveled faster than anyone thought possible. They had bent the laws of physics and won, but their victory felt hollow when they looked at the mysterious planet below. "Captain," Han Soo-young said urgently, "I'm receiving a transmission from the planet's surface." "Put it through." The speakers crackled with static. Then a voice came through, weak and desperate. It was a man's voice, but something was wrong with it. It sounded distant, like the speaker was fighting to form words. This is Captain Park Min-woo, Colony Defense Commander. If anyone receives this message, don't land. Don't come here. They're inside our heads. They're learning everything about us." The transmission cut to static, then silence. The bridge crew stared at each other in shock. Captain Lee felt his heart rate increase. Something had happened to the colony, something that made their rescue mission infinitely more dangerous. "Sir," Park Ji-won said quietly, "what are your orders?" Lee looked at the peaceful-looking planet on the screen. Somewhere down there, nearly 3,000 humans were in danger from something that could get inside their heads. The smart thing to do would be to call for reinforcements, to wait for orders from Earth Command. But Captain Park Min-woo's message had been clear. Whatever was down there was learning about humanity. Every moment they waited might make things worse. "We go down," Lee decided, "but we go carefully. All ships, battle stations, prepare for immediate combat if necessary." As alarms sounded throughout the fleet, Captain Lee wondered what they would find on the surface. They had accomplished the impossible just to get here. Now they had to do it again to save their people. The planet waited below them, beautiful and terrifying, holding secrets that would change everything. The shuttle bay of the EDF Incheon buzzed with nervous energy as Captain Lee Do-yeon prepared for the surface mission. He wore full combat armor and carried enough weapons to fight a small war. Around him, 20 of his best soldiers did the same. Commander Park Ji-won checked her rifle for the 3rd time. "Sir, I still think you should stay on the ship. Let me lead the ground team." "Not a chance," Lee replied, adjusting his helmet. "If something happened to my people down there, I need to see it with my own eyes." Dr. Yoon Seo-jin looked uncomfortable in her borrowed armor. As the only expert on the energy readings they were detecting, she had insisted on coming along. "Captain, the energy patterns from the surface are getting stronger. Whatever's down there, it knows we're here." The shuttle Busan sat ready in the launch bay, her engines warmed up and systems checked. Lieutenant Han Soo-young would pilot them down while staying in constant contact with the Incheon above. "Final equipment check," Lee ordered. Each team member called out their status. "Weapons ready. Life support systems functioning. Communication devices tested." They were as prepared as they could be for an unknown threat. "Sir," Han Soo-young called from the pilot's seat, "we're receiving another transmission from the surface." Lee felt his stomach tighten. "Put it through." This time the voice was different. It was Dr. Hana Kim, the head scientist, but something was terribly wrong. Her voice sounded flat, and emotionless, like a recording. Rescue team, please land at coordinates 127. 3 by 45.7. The situation is under control. We do not require immediate evacuation. Please land at the designated coordinates. The transmission ended abruptly. That wasn't her, Dr. Yoon said quietly. I've heard Dr. Hana Kim speak at conferences. Her voice patterns were completely different. Lee nodded grimly. Something is using her voice. Or worse, something is using her. He activated his communication device. Incheon, this is Lee. We're going down, but not to those coordinates. Take us to the original colony site. Understood, Captain, came the reply from the ship above. The shuttle launched smoothly, carrying them away from the safety of the fleet toward the mysterious planet below. Through the windows, Kepler 442b looked even more beautiful up close, but beauty could hide terrible dangers. As they descended through the atmosphere, their instruments began picking up more detailed readings. What they found made everyone on the shuttle fall silent. Captain, Dr. Yoon whispered, staring at her scanner. The crystal formations have grown. They're 10 times larger than they were 3 months ago. Through the window they could see what she meant. Massive crystal structures jutted up from the ground like frozen lightning. They pulsed with strange colors that hurt to look at directly. And there's something else, Dr. Yoon continued. The crystals aren't just storing energy anymore, they're broadcasting it, sending signals into space. Signals to where? Lee asked. I don't know. But they're not random. There's a pattern, like a language. The shuttle set down in a clearing near the original colony buildings. From the air, everything had looked normal. But as soon as they stepped outside, they knew something was horribly wrong. The colony was too quiet. No machinery running, no people talking, no sounds of normal life. But there were people. They could see colonists walking between buildings, going about their daily tasks. They moved normally, looked normal, but something was missing. Stay close, Lee ordered. Keep your weapons ready, but don't shoot unless I give the order. They approached the nearest building, the colony's main research center. A woman walked out to meet them. It took Lee a moment to recognize Dr. Hana Kim. She looked exactly as she had in her official photos, but her eyes were empty. Welcome to Kepler 442b, she said in that same flat voice they had heard on the transmission. Thank you for responding to our distress call. Dr. Kim, Lee said carefully, what happened here? We received reports of a hostile force. She tilted her head slightly, like a dog hearing a strange sound. There is no hostile force. We are all perfectly safe. Would you like a tour of our facilities? Dr. Yoon's scanner was beeping frantically. She showed Lee the display. Dr. Hana Kim was giving off the same energy pattern as the crystals. Dr. Kim, Lee tried again. Where is Captain Park Min-woo? We received a transmission from him. For just a moment something flickered in her eyes. Fear perhaps, or pain. Then it was gone, replaced by that empty stare. Captain Park Min-woo is conducting routine security patrols. He is perfectly safe. We are all perfectly safe. More colonists began appearing around them. Men, women, children, all with the same empty expressions and flat voices. They surrounded the rescue team, not threateningly, but in a way that made everyone nervous. Captain, Commander Park Ji-won whispered. We need to get out of here. But before Lee could give the order to retreat, the colonists began to speak in unison. Do not be afraid, they said together, their voices creating an eerie harmony. We are not harmed, we are improved. We have joined with something greater than ourselves. Dr. Yoon's scanner was going crazy now. Captain, the energy readings are off the charts. Something is trying to affect our minds. Lee felt it then, a pressure at the edges of his thoughts. Something was trying to get inside his head, to make him calm and peaceful like the colonists. He fought against it, forcing himself to think clearly. Everyone back to the shuttle, he ordered. Now. As they ran, the colonists didn't try to stop them, but they called out in their synchronized voices. You cannot run from us forever. We are already spreading. Soon all of humanity will be improved. They reached the shuttle and Han Soo-young had them airborne in seconds. As they climbed toward the safety of space, Lee looked down at the colony one last time. That's when he saw the truth. The crystal formations weren't just growing randomly. They were arranged in a specific pattern, forming what looked like a massive gateway. And through that gateway something was moving. Shapes that didn't belong in this reality, creatures that existed in the spaces between dimensions. Dear God. Dr. Yoon breathed, looking at the same sight. It's an invasion, but not from our dimension. They're coming from somewhere else entirely. Back on the Incheon, the rescue team gathered in the conference room to share what they had learned. The situation was worse than anyone had imagined. The colonists aren't dead, Lee explained to his officers. They're infected. Something is controlling their minds while keeping their bodies alive. But that means they might still be saved, Park Ji-won said hopefully. Dr. Yoon shook her head. The energy patterns are too strong. Whatever has them is learning everything about humanity through their minds. Our culture, our technology, our weaknesses, and it's preparing to spread to other human worlds. Lee stood at the window, looking down at the planet where 3,000 humans were trapped in their own bodies. The smart thing to do would be to leave immediately and warn Earth about the threat. But he had never been known for doing the smart thing. We're not leaving, he announced. Those people down there are still human, even if something else is controlling them. And I'll be damned if I let some alien parasite use them to attack the rest of humanity. Sir? Park Ji-won said quietly. What can we do? We can't fight something that exists in multiple dimensions. Lee turned back to his crew, determination burning in his eyes. Then we'll have to find a way to do the impossible again. The conference room aboard the EDF Incheon had become a war room. Charts, data displays, and holographic projections filled every available surface. Captain Lee Do-yeon stood at the center of it all, his mind racing through impossible options. Dr. Yoon Seo-jin worked frantically at her computer terminal, analyzing the energy readings from the planet below. Her fingers moved across the keyboard like a pianist playing a desperate song. Captain, I think I understand what we're dealing with, she said without looking up. These creatures, whatever they don't exist fully in our dimension. They're using the crystal formations as anchor points to maintain their presence here. Commander Park Ji-won studied the tactical displays. So if we destroy the crystals, we send them back where they came from? It's not that simple, Dr. Yoon replied. The crystals are connected to the colonists now. If we just destroy them, we might kill everyone on the planet. Lee felt the weight of impossible choices pressing down on him. 3,000 human lives hung in the balance, and every option seemed to lead to their deaths. There has to be another way, he said firmly. What about your fold space technology? Could we use it as a weapon? Dr. Yoon stopped typing and looked up with sudden excitement. Captain, that's actually possible. If we could create a localized fold space bubble around the entire planet, we could trap the invaders in a dimensional pocket. Explain, Lee ordered. Think of it like putting the planet in a box that exists outside normal spacetime. The invaders would be cut off from their home dimension and eventually, they would have to retreat or die. Park Ji-won frowned. What about the colonists? Would they survive in this pocket dimension? For a while, yes. But someone would have to stay behind to maintain the field manually. The energy requirements are enormous, and the quantum cores would need constant adjustment. The room fell silent as everyone understood what she was saying. Creating the dimensional trap would require a volunteer to sacrifice themselves. How long would the field need to be maintained? Lee asked. At least 72 hours. Maybe longer? The invaders would fight back and they might try to break through the barrier. Lieutenant Han Soo-young, who had been quiet until now, suddenly spoke up. I'll do it. Everyone turned to look at the young communications officer. She was barely 25 with her whole life ahead of her. Lieutenant, you don't understand what you're volunteering for, Park Ji-won said gently. Yes, I do, Han Soo-young replied, her voice steady. My family died in the Proxima Centauri attack 5 years ago. Aliens killed them while I was away at the academy. I've been looking for a way to make their deaths mean something ever since. Lee studied the young woman's face. He saw determination, courage, and a peace that came from having made an impossible decision. There might be another way, he said slowly. What if we don't just trap the invaders? What if we turn their own weapon against them? Dr. Yoon looked confused. I don't follow. The colonists are connected to these creatures through their minds, right? What if we could use that connection in reverse? What if we could send something back through the link? Send what? Lee was quiet for a moment, thinking through the implications of his idea. Send them what they can't understand. Send them humanity. The room erupted in questions and protests, but Lee held up his hand for silence. Think about it, he continued. These invaders chose to attack us because they thought we were weak. They expected to find minds they could easily control. But they've never encountered a species like ours. Dr. Yoon's eyes widened as she began to understand. You want to show them human memories? Human emotions. Things they can't process, exactly. Every act of courage, every sacrifice, every time a human chose to help a stranger at their own expense. These creatures understand fear and despair, but they don't understand hope. Park Ji-won shook her head. That's insane. Even if it worked, you're talking about a direct mental link with hostile aliens. It could kill everyone involved. The colonists are already linked to them, Lee pointed out. We'd just be giving them weapons to fight back from the inside. He turned to the communication panel and opened a channel to the planet. Dr. Hana Kim, this is Captain Lee Do-yeon. I know you can hear me, and I know something else is listening too. The response came immediately, but it wasn't Dr. Kim's voice. It was something else speaking through her. We know who you are, Captain Lee Do-yeon. We have learned much about your species through these hosts. You are a warrior, but you are also weak. You value individual lives over survival of the group. That's where you're wrong, Lee replied calmly. Our strength comes from caring about each other, and that's something you'll never understand. Understanding is not necessary, only control. We'll see about that. Lee cut the communication and turned back to his team. Dr. Yoon, how quickly can you modify our communication systems to send more than just audio? You want to transmit thoughts and memories? Every database we have about human history, every record of courage and sacrifice, every story that shows what humanity really is. Dr. Yoon worked furiously at her terminal. It's possible, but the energy requirements would be enormous. We'd have to synchronize all 12 ships in the fleet. Do it, Lee ordered. And prepare the fold space containment field. If this doesn't work, we'll need the backup plan. As the crew scattered to their tasks, Lieutenant Han Soo-young approached Captain Lee. Sir, if the memory transmission doesn't work, I'm still prepared to maintain the containment field. Lee looked at the young officer with respect. I hope it doesn't come to that, Lieutenant. But if it does, I want you to know that your courage honors your family's memory. Over the next 6 hours, the fleet worked with desperate efficiency. Every ship's computer core was linked together, creating a network powerful enough to transmit the entirety of human experience to the planet below. Dr. Yoon had gathered everything: historical records of ordinary people doing extraordinary things, medical files of doctors who died treating plague victims, military records of soldiers who gave their lives for strangers, even simple stories of parents sacrificing for their children. Captain, she reported, we're ready. But I have to warn you, when we start the transmission, those creatures will know exactly what we're trying to do. They'll fight back, Lee nodded grimly. All ships prepare for battle. When we start this transmission, we're declaring war on something that exists in multiple dimensions. Stay alert, stay together, and remember what we're fighting for. He looked down at the planet where 3,000 humans waited for salvation. Begin transmission, he ordered. The ship's quantum cores hummed to life, and humanity's greatest weapon went to war. The simple truth of what it meant to be human. The moment the transmission began, reality itself seemed to scream. Captain Lee Do-hyun felt the ship shake around him as enormous energies poured from every vessel in the fleet toward the planet below. The bridge lights flickered and several crew members grabbed their heads in pain. Status report, Lee called out over the growing noise. All ships maintaining formation, Commander Park Ji-won reported, her voice strained. But the energy feedback is incredible. The aliens are fighting back. On the main screen, Kepler 442b looked like it was being torn apart. The crystal formations pulsed with angry red light, and the very air around the planet seemed to twist and bend. Space itself was warping under the pressure of dimensional forces. Dr. Yoon Seojin worked frantically at her station, sweat pouring down her face. Captain, the transmission is working, but something's wrong. The aliens aren't just receiving our data, they're trying to send something back. What kind of something? Fear, pure concentrated terror. They're trying to break our minds the same way we're trying to break theirs. Several crew members on the bridge suddenly collapsed, clutching their heads and screaming. Whatever the aliens were sending was getting through their defenses. "All hands, this is the captain," Lee announced over the ship's communication system. "We are under psychic attack. Focus on positive memories. Think about the people you love, the reasons you fight. Don't let them into your heads." But even as he spoke, Lee felt the alien influence pressing against his own mind. Images of death and destruction flooded his thoughts. He saw worlds burning, civilizations falling, countless species being absorbed into the collective consciousness of the invaders. Then he remembered something that pushed the fear away, the face of a young soldier who had died saving civilians during the Mars colony uprising. The man had been terrified, but he had done his duty anyway. "Dr. Yoon," Lee called out, "are you getting readings from the planet's surface?" "Yes, sir." "Something's happening down there. The colonists, they're fighting back." On Kepler 442b, Dr. Hana Kim stood in the middle of the research center, her body rigid with concentration. For 3 months, she had been a prisoner in her own mind, while the alien invaders used her knowledge and memories. But now something was different. The transmission from the rescue ships wasn't just data. It was hope. And hope was something the invaders had never encountered before. Inside her mind, Dr. Kim found herself in a strange battlefield. The alien presence was there, cold and hungry, trying to maintain control, but it was being overwhelmed by images and emotions it couldn't understand. She saw a firefighter running into a burning building to save a stranger. She saw a teacher giving her own food to hungry students. She saw a father working 3 jobs to pay for his daughter's medicine. The alien presence recoiled from these memories like they were physical blows. "You don't understand," Dr. Kim said to the thing in her mind. "This is what we really are." Across the colony, other infected humans were having the same experience. Captain Park Minwoo, the defense commander, felt his own mind clearing as the transmission continued. He had been fighting the alien control for months, and now he finally had weapons to fight with. The invaders had made a critical mistake. They had assumed that controlling human bodies would give them access to human knowledge, but they hadn't understood that human strength came from something deeper than logic or technology. Back on the Incheon, the battle was getting worse. 3 more ships reported crew members collapsing from psychic attacks. The aliens were learning to focus their mental assaults more effectively. "Captain," Lieutenant Han Soo-young called out, blood trickling from her nose. "I don't think we can maintain this much longer. The feedback is tearing our minds apart." Lee felt the same pressure building in his own head. The alien fear weapon was getting stronger, more focused. Soon it would break through their defenses entirely. "Dr. Yoon, how much longer do we need?" "At least another hour, sir. The colonists are fighting, but the invaders are still too strong." Lee made a decision that would define the rest of his life. "All ships prepare for fold space containment protocol. We're going to trap the entire planet." "Sir," Park Ji-won protested, "that will require someone to stay behind and maintain the field manually." "I know, Captain. You can't. The fleet needs you." Lee looked around the bridge at his crew. They were brave, dedicated people who deserved better than to die in this insane battle. But someone had to make the hard choice. "Lieutenant Han Soo-young," he said quietly. The young communications officer looked up from her station, her face pale but determined. "Yes, sir? Are you still prepared to maintain the containment field?" "Yes, sir." More than ever, Lee felt a mixture of pride and heartbreak. This young woman was ready to give her life for people she had never met. It was the most human thing imaginable. "Begin fold space containment," he ordered. The ship's quantum cores shifted into a new configuration. Instead of sending data to the planet, they began to bend space itself around Kepler 442b. The effect was visible on the main screen, as reality twisted into impossible shapes. "Containment field establishing," Dr. Yoon reported. "But Captain, the aliens are fighting back harder than ever. They know what we're trying to do." The psychic attacks intensified. More crew members collapsed. The bridge lights went out entirely, leaving them in the eerie glow of emergency power. And then, something unexpected happened. The attack stopped. "Report," Lee called out in the sudden silence. Dr. Yoon checked her instruments with wonder in her voice. "Captain, the containment field is holding, but I'm reading massive energy discharges from the planet's surface. The aliens they're retreating." "Retreating where?" "Back to their own dimension." "The colonists did it, sir." They actually drove them out. On the planet below, Dr. Hana Kim opened her eyes for the first time in 3 months. The alien presence was gone from her mind, driven away by the simple truth of human nature. Around her, other colonists were awakening from their nightmare. Captain Park Minwoo activated his communicator with shaking hands. "This is Park Minwoo to the rescue fleet. The colony is secure. I repeat, the colony is secure, but the victory came at a cost." The fold space containment field was still active, and it still needed someone to maintain it. Lieutenant Han Soo-young sat at her modified control station, her hands steady on the controls that kept the dimensional barrier stable. "Captain," she said calmly, "the field is holding, but I need to stay here to keep it stable. The aliens might try to come back." Lee felt his heart break. "Lieutenant, we'll find another way. We'll get you off that planet." "Sir, with respect, there is no other way. And this is what I want to do. This is how I honor my family." For 72 hours, Lieutenant Han Soo-young maintained the dimensional barrier, while the rescue fleet evacuated the colonists. She worked alone in the abandoned research center, keeping the fold space field stable through sheer force of will. When the last colonist was safely aboard the rescue ships, something miraculous happened. The dimensional barrier didn't collapse. Instead, it stabilized permanently, sealing the gateway between dimensions forever. Lieutenant Han Soo-young had done more than maintain a containment field. She had created a permanent barrier that would protect this entire region of space from further invasion. The rescue fleet found her unconscious, but alive in the colony's command center, surrounded by the quiet hum of machinery that had learned to run itself. When she woke up in the ship's medical bay, Captain Lee was waiting for her. "How do you feel, Lieutenant?" "Like I finally did something that mattered, sir," Lee smiled. "You saved an entire galaxy, and you don't even know it yet." As the fleet prepared to return to Earth, they carried with them not just rescued colonists, but proof that humanity's greatest strength wasn't their technology or their weapons. It was their willingness to sacrifice everything for others.